we've been having debates in America since before the country was founded, and it's existed all the way up until present day because it's the best tool that we can offer the constituency to be able to weigh the candidates on the issues and how well they would perform, not just in the primary, but also in the general election. So I've been on stage with these guys enough times to tell you that ideologically, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of difference between us. There may be some nuances that you'll be able to see as we start talking. But there's going to be something else that's on display tonight that I hope you'll pay particular attention to, and that's predominantly our ability to present a message. Are you comfortable on the stage? Can you craft a message that you could convey to people that they'll be able to resonate with and accept and make their own? Do you have a vision for where we're going, and can you articulate that vision to people who not just are in the district but are around the country? And that's leadership. That's fundamentally is leadership, to have the vision and be able to convey that message to people in such a way that they take that inside and they adopt it as theirs and then get on your team and then help you push that message forward. And that's something that's been really lacking in our district for the last 4 years. Darren Soto likes to tout his endorsement from Joe Biden, but if you actually read the endorsement, it says Darren Soto's an effective legislator. He knows how to keep his head down. I read that and I was like, you know, the last time I checked, it's real hard to lead when you're constantly looking at your own feet. So we need to make sure that we're sending somebody who is just as polished as Darren is, but will actually be able to lead, to go to Washington, D.C., to take that message, hand it out to the people, but then carry it not just through the primary, but through the general election and actually up to D.C.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for taking your time and spending it with us this evening. We know the rain's coming and some of us are a little bit sensitive to it. So I thank you for being part of this event. Faith, family, and freedom is my motto. It will always be, and it will never stop, because faith, without faith, if you don't stand firmly on something, if you don't stand firmly on the rock, you will be swayed like there's no tomorrow, and you will have no clear path to where you're going because you don't have something firm to guide you. Family, as we all know, family is very important. It is the glue that holds the community together. If we didn't have families, there will be no reason to have a community, because there will be any. And freedom. A lot of people have given up their lives. A lot of people have taken their times and being part of this army and this nation, given up their time so we can have freedom that we are having today. That freedom is not cheap. I do not take it for granted. And when I go to Washington to be your freedom, to be your voice, to be your vision, I want you to know clearly that that vision is polished, that that vision is true, that that vision has goals for our families, for our freedom, and for our faith. My name is Sergio Ortiz. I'm looking for your support and your vote. Be blessed.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Olson. My background is as a Sergeant First Class in the United States Army. Now, because that was 27 years of my life, that seems to be the prevailing thing that we talk about as far as my qualifications. But it is interesting to know that I have spent some time out and working with the quote-unquote common folks. I worked out at Walt Disney World, very much like Jose, but I was actually out in the park itself, working as a, can I get this? A jungle cruise skipper, believe it or not, okay? So I wanted to be out with the folks so that they were having fun and I could be part of that fun. But some people ask me, Bill, why in the world did you decide that you wanted to run for Congress? Well, for first thing, it's nothing that I ever thought that I was going to do. It was not in my plan. This is not my plan. I had a career. This is not a career upgrade for me. This is something much more important. It's about honor and duty and service and the oath that I've taken many times that I would protect and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And you know that we have enemies in our midst right now, don't we? All right? We have to have someone go to Washington, D.C. that is going to stand up to them and say, enough. I'm that person. I'm that person. The Constitution of the United States is the most important document other than the Bible when it comes to things that we're doing as far as following. The teachings of Jesus Christ. You know, John Adams said that our type of government is wholly unable to work, I'm paraphrasing here, without Christianity. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Castillo, and I'm here because I want to be your next congressman. I want to be your next congressman because I love this country, I love our president, I love what he's doing, but he needs help. He needs help restoring our economy. And right now in front of you, you have 4 choices. We've been here before. Previous elections, we had a choice, and we picked a great candidate. We picked a candidate that was a veteran, a business owner, someone who was with ties to the community. And you know that when they spoke from the heart. It's a great candidate. Unfortunately, our candidate, the Republican candidate, lost. And they lost because the odds were stacked against them. And you know what? They're still stacked against us. Some of you on your chairs, you'll see, we have the stats. 227,000 Democrats against 155,000 Republicans. We need to pick a candidate that has broad-based appeal, because people need a representative in Congress, someone who they can trust and they can identify with. And I gotta tell you, it's 38 days to Election Day. I told a lot of my supporters to watch it online. Some of them are actually knocking doors right now. And I know that this venue has a lot of the relatives, colleagues, and family members and friends of my opponents. So this is what I need to tell you. I need you to think about this. Are you gonna vote just based on your relationship with them? Or are you gonna vote for the person that can actually deliver the win in November? Because if you vote for my opponents, I'm telling you, you're actually voting for Diane Soto. Thank you.
Folks are rattled. We've been through a virus the past few months. Now you see looting, rioting, burning. Our statues of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson are being torn down, Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass. What do you see in this, and how do you see a path out of it?
JC, you're stealing my closing argument, man. I was actually going to address that very topic at the tail end of the debate, but I guess we can go ahead and discuss it now. As I was looking at the situation that's going on, I actually got an email from somebody who I've recently come to know, and she was expressing the same sentiment in her email about how she's feeling hopeless because of all the messaging and everything that's out there right now. And as I was trying to craft an answer to be able to provide her that hope, I kept going back into our nation's history, which is rather ironic considering they're trying to rewrite that history. But I kept going back to the 80s, and this is during the Cold War. You've got nuclear proliferation, and a lot of the unemployment was up, GDP's down, so almost the same kind of situation that we're in now with the feeling of the country. And President Reagan made a great statement in an address to the British House of Commons. He said, "We can't afford to be shy any longer. We have to go to our strength. We have to offer hope, and we have to tell the world that a new age is not only possible, but it's probable." And I thought to myself, yes, that's the message that we need to take forward from here going forward. It's time you can't be shy anymore. The time for being the silent majority is over. You gotta stand up, you gotta make your voice heard. But what's the voice need to say? The voice needs to go to our strengths. And what are those strengths? Those strengths are the values that we hold here, right? Like individual responsibility, small government, free market principles, the strength of the individual family. If we can get those values back out into the mainstream, we're going to be just fine and be able to move this thing forward. And that's something that the left is not giving you right now.
Mr. Ortiz, same question. Would you like it repeated?
As I was praying this morning for this country, I was rebuking the spirit of fear that it has the grip on this nation. We can no longer live in fear, but we have to live what the Bible says with power, with love, and a sound mind. Because if we don't have a sound mind, we will be swayed like oceans, the ships in the ocean, that they move here and they move there. This country needs to be rooted in something solid, something that they can believe in. And what the left is throwing at them is fear, fear, and fear. It used to be, let's throw grandma from the cliff. It used to be, they're going to take away your Social Security. It used to be, the Republicans are going to take away everything. But now they're using this silent animosity, something that is not of God, and they're trying to use it and instill fear. The lootings, we have laws. Let's implement those laws. Let's get those people. There's a federal crime to take out one of those statues. Why don't we get the police officers to go there like Trump did? He went and got the National Guard and guarded them because the mayors and the governors of those states are not doing a thing. So we need to get those people out of there and tell the people, the American people, we are the strongest nation in the world. We don't need to destroy our monuments to make us feel good about ourselves. We are powerful. We are the United States of America, and in this nation where we stand, we will be great, and we will take away that spirit of fear.
Mr. Olson.
I think we all know that the Black Lives Matter movement itself, the umbrella, has actually been taken over by Marxists. Okay, this is theirs. This is them saying that. Their founders say that they're Marxist and that's their ideology. It is their idea that they want to, tear down the nuclear family. What are you going to do with folks like that? You have to fight them, okay? Now, not fight them on the streets, but fight them in the halls of government. Now, we have folks that are part of our government, and they really do want to tell us to just keep doing the same things that we're doing. We cannot be silent anymore. We need to have someone to go up to Washington, D.C., that has the grit to be able to stand up and not be wishy-washy and take all the money that you can get from all of the different special interests and try and work your way up the ladder. No ladders here, okay? I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. I've already said that I term limit at about 3 terms, 3 2-year terms, okay? I want to go up to Washington, D.C., be an ally to President Trump. Help him make sure that he doesn't get impeached again on some nonsense. Okay? We need to have folks go up to Washington, D.C. to be counted. Thank you.
Mr. Castillo.
And so I think that every time there's a tragedy, a big event that impacts us negatively, a lot of the people on the left, their solution is to look to government and say, help us. And what we need to do is we need to look to the right and look at the Constitution and says, what does the Constitution say about this? With the pandemic, government telling us you have to wear a mask. Listen, this country was founded on principles of individual responsibility. If you want to wear a mask, if you want to protect your family, you wear a mask. But there's no DC politician that needs to be telling you what to do for your safety. And the same thing, with the Black Lives Matter protests, now they want to defund the police. So what is the knee-jerk reaction from our congressmen? To join those on the left and pass a bill, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Listen, every bill in Congress, you're going to find there's some good things in it. But then you got to look, is this constitutional? They're trying to take accountability of our police and our sheriffs from us, the people we vote for them, and send it to Congress. And we need to stand up and say, no, that's not what we're going to do in this country. The Constitution is the law of the land, and we need people in Congress, like myself, who are going to go there to protect it. Thank you.
What is your opinion about free speech? Should conservative students be able to use free speech on college campus and feel safe? And the other part of the question, what would you do for conservative students to feel safe on campus when they have different opinions?
It has been my experience that free speech is able to be free as long as you go along with the Democrats' point of view. If you have a different one, then it's not free speech. You cannot speak. If any government and any college, any university that receives a penny from the United States government and they do not allow free speech from all sides, because a lot of people, like I said earlier, a lot of people died for us to be able to speak and say what we feel. If any of those institutions does not allow a conservative point of view, I will defund them so fast that they will not know what hit them. Because what's good for the goods is good for the gander. And we are a nation built on freedom of speech. In 1776, a lot of people declared under the elm tree, they said that this nation will have the freedom of expression. We'll have the freedom to say what we want to say, even though you might not like it. I know a lot of people that speak what I don't want to hear, but I still have the courtesy to listen them out. If we don't speak to one another, we don't have different point of views, what is the purpose of having the great freedom that we have in this nation?
If you're at the college level and they are not allowing freedom of speech, just like you said, there goes the money. Okay? If you're getting federal grants, especially in these most of these universities, they have billions of dollars in their endowments. Okay? And yet they have cut off free speech almost entirely. And we need to get up to Congress and get control up there, flip it back so that we can get Nancy Pelosi out of that seat, send her back to the back row. Okay? She was just talking just yesterday. They asked her, well, what about the statues and stuff? And she's like, well, people's going to do what they're going to do. What? What happened to law and order? What happened to protection for these people, for our young people that are on these campuses? We need to start protecting them. Now, I spent an awful long time in places all around the world serving in uniform to make sure that we could have our free speech. And I'll be darned if I'm not going to go up to Washington, D.C. and make sure that we continue to have free speech. Thank you.
Basically, the youth, young, everyone goes to college because our parents told us to go to college. To be successful, you have to go to college. So here comes all the young people going to college for an education, and they're coming out with an indoctrination of the left, okay? People going to college, back in the 60s, I think it was, the Space Wars, the United States government said we cannot fall behind to the Russians, right? And that's when they started student loans, so that everyone could afford and go to college. We needed people, bright, young people studying engineering, mathematics, and sciences. But now, they go to liberal arts colleges, they come out with lots of debt, and with the left-leaning, socialist, communist-loving mind. So we're going to fight that. We're going to fight that in Congress. None of those institutions are going to get government funding. And one thing I also got to tell you, this is not just from colleges. This is everywhere. I got to tell you, I wore a Romney shirt going to Disneyland in LAX. And at the moment I got off that plane, I'm not going to repeat all the names I got called. Here in Florida, I could wear whatever I want. I could wear Trump, Obama, whatever. No one's going to call you anything. But you go to some of these places that are very left-leaning, and no, if you don't agree with them, you have no freedom of speech. And we need to stand up for that. We need to fight for that. So not only do we need to go to Congress and legislate, we need to be loud, outspoken, and clear, and let people know that we support the president and we love our country.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the question was, how do we ensure free speech on campuses, right?
Yes.
Okay, so free speech on campuses, obviously that's something that needs to be done equal-handedly. So if you're going to provide a platform for the left or the Democrats to be able to get out and display their messages, to talk to people, you need to provide an equal opportunity for conservatives to do the same thing. Yes, we can limit funding on the federal level, but most of the funding for these institutions comes from the state and from tuition. So the 14th Amendment makes the First Amendment applicable to the states. So you can actually use federal law to enforce this, but I don't know that you have to. Just unleash the trial lawyers. Create a cause of action on the federal level that allows for people who have had their voice suppressed on college campus to have a civil suit against the college. And you watch how fast those administration changes their policy.
Mr. Olson, a lot of us saw on TV a couple in Missouri armed in their front yard with a couple hundred people that had just broken through their neighborhood gate and they were headed for their house. The Attorney General in Missouri recently just confiscated one of their firearms with a subpoena and has been threatening prosecuting them for defending themselves. I'll set this up for those that don't know. The crowd was threatening to kill their dog and them and burn their house down. And they stood in their front yard with firearms to stave off the crowd. Mr. Olson, the question for all of you is, how are we going to fix people like that? The Attorney General that's going to prosecute people defending themselves with the mob.
The Second Amendment is obviously very important, okay? Without the Second Amendment, we're not going to have the First Amendment because we've got situations, and just like what we've seen in that particular instance, where these people were, all they were doing is going out and protecting themselves, protecting their home. These people were trespassing, and they did exactly what I would have done in their situation. Now, as far as what's going on in the state itself, I think that the governor should do whatever he can do, because I do believe it is a Republican governor in that particular state. And I know the senator there is Josh Hawley, and he has come to their aid, and so that's where we're helping. Now, what we can do with that Attorney General, I don't really know what you can do about that. I just don't know. Thank you.
Mr. Castillo.
You said this is in Missouri, right?
Yes, it was St. Louis, Missouri.
So the people in Missouri are going to take care of the Attorney General in Missouri. But one thing I can tell you, we're running for Congress. We're going to be at the federal level, and at the federal level, I'm going to protect our gun rights. I was born in New Orleans, but I lived in Central America, in Honduras. And while I was there, I'll say this loosely, a gentleman once threatened me with a gun. Okay? In that country, I have no rights to go get a gun. But you know what the criminals do? They all have guns. That guy was a thug. He had a gun. So I will fight for every American because I believe we have a God-given right to defend ourselves.
Mr. Wright.
So, talking about Second Amendment rights on the federal level, absolutely, that's something we must protect. But I agree a little bit with Jose on this one, that the people of Missouri are going to have to take something like what we did in Florida with the Stand Your Ground law and apply it to the citizenship in their state, right? And that Stand Your Ground law basically says that as long as I'm in a place where I have a lawful right to be, I can use force to protect my life and protect the life of others. So if Missouri had a law like Florida's Stand Your Ground, they would not be subject to these kinds of criminal prosecutions. In fact, quite the opposite. The state would be in a position to have to overcome the presumption of self-defense. Okay, now on the federal level, we had DC versus Heller, which recognizes an individual's right to carry and bear arms. Okay, but they stopped short on how much a state is allowed to infringe upon that right. So really, if you're looking for something to happen on the federal level with this, it's going to have to come through the Supreme Court, which is why we need another 4 years of President Trump. I know people have been paying real close attention to what's going on at the Supreme Court, especially lately, and there are at least 2 justices that ought to be pretty close to retirement. And if we can get Trump in for another 4 years, there is a very good chance that we get to pick those justices. And then maybe you'll see the kind of progress on the Second Amendment that we've wanted to see for the last 20 years.
Mr. Ortiz.
How many of you know what an RPO is? Very few people. Risk protection order. That's when the government can come into your house without a warrant, without anything, just your neighbor complain about you. They can come to your house and take your guns. They can come to your house and confiscate it, and then you have to prove that you are capable of having that gun. And that costs thousands of dollars that they do not provide you an attorney to help you with that. Think about that. So when you're thinking about that, talk to your friends in all the states. We need to have people that respect the Second Amendment when they are voted for. We need to put people in every office in this nation that will respect the gun laws, that will respect everything that we have fought hard for. We are not to lose our guns just because we're protecting our home. Because I will do the same thing. If they come threatening me in my house, I will take out my gun legally and I will brandish it and I will not point it at nobody. But they're not going to destroy my home. That's my castle, your castle, and your family's castle. So you will need to protect them. So help out those counties, help out those states. Do whatever you can. If you pray, pray. If not, go over there and physically demonstrate that we, the people of the United States who believe in laws, who believe that owning the gun is a right that we have to defend ourselves, will never be taken away from us.
George, can I have a minute on that one?
Yeah, we could give you that. 30 seconds.
All right, just very quickly, just to clarify a point that Sergio is making, the stand your ground law in Florida does not allow you to use deadly force just to protect property. Okay, it's a very important distinction between what's going on with the people that were in Missouri, because they were standing in their own yard, and it wasn't about them protecting their house. It was the fact that they were in their property, and that force was going to be used against them to get to their property. Okay, so it's a very important legal distinction that you have to make sure that you're talking about there. You cannot use deadly force just to protect property.
Can I have 2 seconds?
You were named as well.
Just because they're outside in front of your lawn, by experience and by what we have seen in the news, they will go to every house, burn it down, and they were threatening to burn them in their house. So there was imminent danger to those people right then and there. Stand your ground.
We know that the Chinese are imposing their will and with their every effort to dominate society and the economy. What's your point of view, and what would you do to recommend to the president or your fellow congressmen? Jose.
There's the problem. The problem with Hong Kong is actually a little bit bigger. I think the problem we're having is really the United Nations. When you think of all the atrocities and human rights violations that governments like China do, but look at all the members in the United Nations. I gotta tell you, I live in Latin America, I follow what they do, and like flies, just for money, for economic benefit, we have all these countries dropping their relationship with Taiwan and then curting up with China. So China's we're basically allowing the United Nations and all the rest of these countries to let China do whatever they want to do in Hong Kong. So we need someone who's going to stand up. I know our president's standing up to China, and he needs help. So that's what I intend to do. I'm going to go fight in Congress for what's right, for freedom. This is the only country in the world. How many powers we have? We have, let's say, China, Russia, USA. USA, we need to make sure this country stays atop, because this is the only country. Where else will we go? If this country falls down, where will we go? Look at it. When people escape Venezuela, when your wife escapes Vietnam, Cuba, where do they go? They come here. So we need to fight for this country because we're the beacon of hope for the rest of the world.
Mr. Wright.
So the worst thing to happen to Hong Kong in recent history is they got reabsorbed by China. For decades, they've been one of our strongest trading partners in Southeast Asia. Obviously, a lot of manufacturing coming out of that region of the world. With everything that China's doing to their population, I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're taking a real hard look at our humanitarian assistance. But because they are a province of China, we cannot take direct action. International law does not allow us to just intervene in the foreign affairs of other countries, in the internal affairs of other countries. Now we can sanction, we can condemn, we can offer humanitarian assistance, we can even offer people to try to relocate to neighboring countries in the area and offer whatever support we can. We can get our not-for-profits involved in that, because not-for-profits are not bound by the same international law that the federal government is bound by. A not-for-profit's just a company. We can absolutely use those resources to help the people in Southeast Asia, but we cannot get directly involved in the relationship between China and Hong Kong.
Every rebellion in this world starts with hope. If we don't give them hope for a brighter future, they will decimate themselves. If we don't give them the understanding and they know that they are part of this global economy, and we have to build that hope, and we as a nation have to stand firm with them and say, we are standing with you. We will not be able to enter your borders, but we are with you. We are following you. We will respect your decisions, and we will do everything that we can to help you out. We will stand firmly with the people of that nation, knowing that communism is going to take over once again. But just because it's taking over doesn't mean that it's like Cuba, where everything is controlled. That is a strong nation that has a lot of resources, that has a lot of media, that they can get together and form cohesive units of people who will struggle, and we will say, we are with you. Internationally, we will stand on the United Nations and say, we are for the people of Taiwan. We will support them. And they themselves will rise like a phoenix from the fire and get out of that bond that is holding them right now. But we have to stay firm and give a firm message to them constantly.
So the Chinese Communist Party, they understand one thing: money. That's what they want, okay? And we have the ability to do what? Sanction. That's what President Trump has already been doing with tariffs, but there's also other sanctions that we can do. That's what we need to do, and we need to project power in the South China Sea. We need to continue to send our bombers in that space. Send aircraft carriers like we did just in the last week. Send aircraft carriers in there to let them know that we're here. We still have the military prowess to be able to take care of this situation if it becomes, well, out of hand. Thank you.
A lot of Americans learned a lot of things they didn't know about their pharmaceuticals, about face masks, and where they're all coming from, and how much of our industry over recent decades has been shipped overseas. And then when the chips are down, we're finding out somebody else is hoarding everything. Chris, comment please, and all of you, comment please on what President Trump has been doing to try and bring the supply chain back to America, and what you would do to help that.
So President Trump's been focused on tariffs and creating a positive tax environment to entice those jobs to come back, which I think is spot on. I'd like to take it a step further though. China being one of the primary exporters of the pharmaceuticals that we're consuming right now. I don't know if you guys know this, but not too long ago, Puerto Rico used to be our primary exporter of pharmaceuticals. We need to get back to that. Yeah. We need to get back to that. We cannot, it's a national security issue. We cannot be dependent on any one country for any of our supplies, especially as something as critical as pharmaceuticals and medical equipment. Okay, and you can apply the same rationale to a whole host of different industries, but especially those. And the fact that Puerto Rico has already been a home to the pharmaceutical industry, let's focus on getting it back to Puerto Rico. Yes. Let's put the tax incentives back in place. Let's start working with the PROMESA law and get that financial aid, that federal aid, released to the island so that they can actually build their infrastructure. Yes. Note on that though, I think President Trump's head is in the right place, making sure that that money is actually getting to those projects and it's not being siphoned off. Okay? But let's step that effort up, because I'll tell you, the only way you're going to get long-term sustainability for our supply lines and the island of Puerto Rico is you have to rebuild the economy. Yes. You have to rebuild the economy. That's what gives you the power to be able to make decisions for yourself. If you're beholden to some other country for your supply line, they have power over you at the negotiating table. We saw this with oil too. We saw it with oil. Being oil independent gives us the ability to go out and negotiate with world powers without having to kowtow to them because we need their energy. So you can apply that same principle across a whole host of industries.
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz.
Well, yes, Puerto Rico's already set up and prepared, and there's factories idle in the country right now. I used to travel from Yabucoa to Caguas, and Johnson & Johnson was there. I used to travel from Yabucoa to Macau, and Sun Oil used to be there. And I used to go through the same Route 3, and the factories are all gone because we took out the incentives. When they changed the law to the Promesa law, it ruined the country because it made it into a foreigner stream where if you have a corporation like Microsoft and you get an office with 3 people, you can have billions of dollars of tax haven. We need to get Puerto Rico going. We need to bring that industry back into the island in a way that it helps the people of Puerto Rico, that not just we have an industry where everybody's producing, but they're not doing anything for the people who live there. That economy needs to be restructured. We need to get rid of those crooked politicians. The same way we need to get rid of those crooked politicians that we have now, and we have to get rid of Darren Soto that goes to Puerto Rico for a weekend, comes back with thousands of dollars, and he doesn't do a thing for them. He doesn't do a thing for this county. And I also, for industries about medicine, I would love to get a few factories here in Osceola County opening up the businesses so that the people of Osceola can also benefit for that influx of need, that influx of money that is needed for the medical industry to safeguard one of our most share and love individuals, which is the elderly, so that we can protect the elderly. I used to work at a nursing home, so I know what it is to take care of the elderly. So I have compassion for them. And once we institute that here, we're good.
Good job,
Mr. Olson.
I'm for free market economies. I'm a capitalist. But we do have what's called crony capitalism going on, okay? And we need to stop that, okay? Our companies are going overseas because we basically priced our way out of keeping the labor right here in the United States by so much regulation and things like that. And it all went over to China because they have no regulation at all. So we need to cut the regulations that are cutting our jobs, especially our supply chain. And yes, why not, let's say, Neo City? I mean, they're having trouble now. How about we put some pharmaceutical companies as part of the supply chain inside Neo City so that they can become solvent and we won't be wasting more money on our taxpayer money on a place like that. Thank you.
Mr. Castillo.
See, we depend on our supply chain on foreign countries because of unions. That's what it is, it's unions. They basically make it non-competitive for companies to operate here in the States. They ship their labor, they ship their factories to China, Latin America. And not only that, and actually it's the same unions that support Darren Soto, by the way. And not only that, not only are they shipping and hurting our jobs, shipping them away, now these unions are supporting Democrats who keep voting for an unsecure border, so now people are actually coming here to take our jobs. So we're shipping jobs, and then now they're coming here to take our jobs. So I'm gonna go to Congress to fight for a right to work, because I believe in that. And just think about it. I know that when I say that I want to support building a wall, you have to think about this. Here in Osceola County, we're at 31% unemployment, 31%. President Trump had the best economy in my lifetime, not ever. Lowest unemployment for Hispanics, for blacks, right here. That became a magnet for illegal immigrants to come into our communities and take our jobs. So I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna fight for a right to work because unions, like I said, not only are they shipping our jobs, they're also allowing other people to come here and take our jobs. And I'm gonna fight for American jobs.
You've heard a lot about the FISA warrant, the controversy surrounding the FISA warrant process. It can be used and abused. What's your opinion? And how would you approach dealing with this? What kind of recommendations would you make as a congressman?
Well, the issue with the FISA warrants was that they started with a rumor surrounded by enigma and overturned with a stupidity and lies. It is what it is. Because what they did, the FBI, they got a memo, they took it out and they sent it to one of their cronies in the newspaper. The newspaper published it, so now it becomes general knowledge. And since it becomes general knowledge, then they could use it as a FISA for them to then declare a FISA warrant. We need to get better at tightening the grip on those FISA warrants. We cannot just have it nilly-willy. And also, this is what voting matters. We have people there who has been in the swamp for years. We need to get them out. I believe that the FBI agents and the CIA, most of them are courageous people, honorable people. But if we keep having them there, constantly destroying everything, because this did not happen before Trump got elected. This has been going on since Obama, when they figured it out that, oh my God, he won, the deer in the headlights. We have to stop that. So we need to create ways and laws, because there are laws there. We need to implement those laws. If we keep making laws for this and for that, we have books. The lawyers will go out there and fight and refuse, and they will try to make more laws, and we cannot do more laws. Let's enforce the ones we have. The law says they cannot do what they did, and if we find out that they're wrong, put them in jail. Put the fear of God in those people, that next time they want to try to do the same thing, then they'll know that they will go to jail. Simple as that.
Bill?
Well, there's a good reason when people are surveyed to ask what are the most honorable jobs. Soldiers are near the top and lawyers are near the bottom. Okay? Just look at them. Now, Durham, he's gonna get to the bottom of this, okay? And I believe that we're gonna find out that some of these people that have acted dishonorably, they're gonna find themselves in bracelets. And that's what we need to do. Just like Sergio said, we need to, these people that did wrong things, broke the law, we have to have equal justice under the law for everyone. Not just the ruling class that is up above, but for everybody. Thank you.
Jose?
The FISA laws, I believe, are another knee-jerk reaction to something. And I'm going to put this in a bucket with the no-fly list, the red flag laws, where they don't honor your due process. So what we need in Congress is representatives who have a backbone, know the Constitution, and will pledge to follow it, because these laws are just simply unconstitutional.
Thank you. Next. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, he's not getting off the hook that
Okay,
easy.
I'm sorry.
No. So I'm going to put my lawyer hat on for a second and tell you how we fix the FISA process. You need more lawyers, okay? The reason the FISA process broke down is because there was no defense attorney. The prosecution is allowed to just bring in their case with unsubstantiated claims and reports, and they present it to the judge accepts it as fact that you're telling the truth, and then he grants the warrant based on it. If there was an opportunity to have a defense counsel in the same room with the same clearance who could ask cross-examination questions and evaluate the evidence for what it is and start poking holes in their case, that would have never been granted. It's the reason why people have a constitutional right to a defense lawyer every time they're being charged with a crime. That's why you need lawyers in the room, is to protect those kind of rights. And that's how we do it. We put a defense attorney in the room that can make sure that the prosecutor is not running away with the process.
If I may? 1 second. They picked the lawyers to defend the FBI. They picked the judge to defend the FBI. So lawyers throwing more into that is like throwing gasoline into the fire. We need to have judges who are there to protect the law. More lawyers are not going to fix it because that is just obfuscating the problem. We need to clarify, simplify, bring it down to the nitty-gritty.
You tell that to the defendant who's being denied an opportunity to be represented by an attorney in a criminal proceeding.
There's plenty of those defense attorneys out there. They're a dime a dozen. All right,
Okay.
let me speak, please.
Everybody's going to get a shot at this.
Okay? The ruling class wants to tell you that you need more lawyers up in Washington, D.C. Oh my goodness, do we not have enough there? What is Darren Soto? Lawyer. What was Alan Grayson before him? A lawyer. The other guy before him? A lawyer. We need someone that is just like you. I'm just like you. Yeah, shake your head all you want, ma'am. I'm like you. I am a person that has spent my whole life defending the Constitution of the United States, and I didn't need to see any more lawyers.
Jose?
Listen, no one can even read these laws because lawyers help craft them. We don't need more lawyers in Congress. We need average people like you and me to go represent us. Okay? Thank you.
All right. What's your message in 7 words or less? Not 2 minutes, 7 words or less.
Defeat Darren Soto.
Jose?
I'm going to help the president build the wall and restore our economy.
Chris?
We cannot afford to be shy.
Sergio?
This is the greatest nation, and we need to fight for it.
A question for all candidates. Will you all commit to buy and eat Goya products and take a picture of what you eat before the primary?
I done that already.
Absolutely, Goya. I mean, like that. Absolutely, I will. I eat Goya all the time.
I think we can all commit to that, yeah.
Ask the white guy whether or not he eats Goya. Sometimes, okay. And I will, when I do, I'll specially go out and I will, get some Goya and we'll take a photo. This guy's a good guy, okay? And they need to be supported.
Si es Goya, tiene que ser bueno.
All right. Let's go to some of the red meat again. We've had controversy after the Parkland shooting and the reaction of Tallahassee for red flag laws. Do you support or oppose red flag laws on a national level? This starts with Chris Wright.
Opposed. It's, especially the way that it's drafted, it's just got too many holes in it, too many opportunities for it to be abused. It completely skirts the otherwise legal process that's in place. It just needs to go away.
I strongly oppose. It violates too many of our rights. A lot of them get circumvented, and that is not the America that I came to live and love, and I will defend our Second Amendment everywhere I go.
The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Totally against them.
Opposed. I'm an NRA member. I love this country, and I love our Constitution, and we're going to fight for it.
Should D.C. become a state or not?
I believe that when the DC was crafted and made, it was for the intention to stay neutral to the country. If we make it a state, then it will have a say-so about other stuff. So if the original intent, like the Constitution says, that that's going to be just a district, let it be a district. They have no need to be a state.
It's unconstitutional to make Washington, D.C. a state. Now, if they want to go through the constitutional process in order to do that, I don't believe it'll pass, but they can do that. But otherwise, just the fiat of the executive and legislative branches, no.
So I just want you to know that the left, the Democrats, are trying to make DC a state, and also Puerto Rico, because they think that they're going to get 2 senators from each of those places, so 4 senators in the Senate, and additional representatives in Congress. And I'll tell you this, I'm against statehood for DC, because it would be unconstitutional. If the people in DC want to be represented in Congress and want to have a voice, then they ought to go back to the states that formed them to begin with. Now, Puerto Rico, I would support Puerto Rico, even if they do vote Democrat. I don't think they would. I think if we have a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican President, and Puerto Rico is granted a statehood, they will never forget that. And anyways, it's the right thing to do. We allowed a territory, Alaska and Hawaii, a long time ago, so why not do it to Puerto Rico?
There was actually a very good reason why DC was carved out of Maryland, and it's because you don't want a state to be able to assert political influence over federal government. That's not the way it was set up. It's supposed to be the other way around, right? Federal law is the supreme law of the land. States, of course, control their territory. The intent behind the District of Columbia hasn't changed in 2.5 centuries. The people in the district already get to participate in presidential elections. They get to elect local leadership too. Why do they need to be a state? Why do they need to be a state? They need to stay a district. And by the way, if they want to live in a state, they could literally drive 30 minutes in either direction, either be in Maryland or Virginia.
What current member of Congress would you model yourself after?
Tom Cotton, Senator from Arkansas. He's a former vet. He worked at the Old Guard in Washington, D.C. at Arlington National Cemetery. He's a patriotic American, and I believe he is an excellent role model for just about everything you could think of as far as positions.
Jose?
There's quite a few. I would say in the past, maybe Ron Paul, but right now, Chip Roy. I really like Chip Roy. I think he's relatable, and I think he's looking out for the best interest of not just the people in his district, but also our country and his state, which is his state is Texas. So it would be Chip Roy.
Chris?
I think I'd like to model myself after Leader McConnell. That guy has been a conservative stalwart for as long as I can remember, and he has almost single-handedly held back the hordes from the gate. That guy's got a backbone, and he needs support in the House.
Sergio?
The one that I like, and it's not my favorite, but I like the most, is our current governor. I like what he did, and I like what he's doing here in the state of Florida. And I especially like the one, and I wish I could remember his name, he's from Alaska, that he has done more for the people of Puerto Rico that Darren Soto has done for this Puerto Rican community here in the United States and there in Puerto Rico. That's what I want to model myself against everybody who is a strong conservative, who believes in the Bible, and he believes that we as the human beings in here, we have a greater future. And we need to stand our moral grounds to move this country forward.
Okay, we're going to start with Jose. There's so many controversies going on, and I could go on ad infinitum, but I'm not going to bore you with that. Let's talk about DACA and immigration. What's your particular point of view or stance on DACA and the immigration issue? Jose.
So I just want to let you know that I actually put out a immigration reform plan, and I believe I'm the only candidate who has done such a thing. And the reason is because I believe that the whole immigration issue is something that has been we've been kicking the can down the road year after year, and we need to just solve this right now. Now, part of my plan would be to definitely secure the border. We have to secure the border, okay? But we're also in 2020. Right now we have caravans. Actually, right now, there's a caravan coming here looking for jobs, right? So we have to secure the border. And we're in 2020. There's a lot of people that come here, and what they do is say, I need asylum. They all say that. Now, there's people that truly need asylum, but most of them are just using that as a loophole to get here. Okay, so we need to solve this. It's 2020. Can't you, look, there's people watching us online right now. If you are in, let's say, Guatemala, if you're in El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, Mexico, and you think you need to come to America to get asylum, why can't you just connect with our embassy? From the safety of your home, before you go through Mexico, cartel-infested territories, before you're tortured and you're made a mule. So I think that we need to solve, in order to solve DACA, we're gonna have to solve, we have to secure the border, and we have to look at my plan. My plan's actually, I see the light, so my plan's actually on my table. I have it right here. It's a 6-point plan, and we're gonna go to Congress and we're gonna solve this once and for all. Thank you.
Chris?
So you want to know why the left keeps talking about DACA and how they're threatening to make the program go away? It's because they want people to be afraid. Right? But what would you say if I told you that I could give you a program right now that got you citizenship, DACA recipients, if I got them citizenship in less than 90 days? Would you believe me? It's on the books. It's on the books right now. And by the way, inside of that 90 days, I'll give you a job, I'll give you retirement, I'll give you the best health care in the country, and I'll give you free college. It's called military service. But you don't hear anybody talking about it. I know about it because I'm a military attorney. But you can go to basic training, and before you're done in basic training, have your citizenship. Most people get it before they're out of basic training. And then you have to stay in for 5 years in order to make it permanent, and when you're done, you can then sponsor family. But nobody's talking about that. Where's our left leadership on that one? They don't want to tell you because they want you to keep coming back to them to keep you dependent on the system. I'm telling you right now, there's a program already on the books that will get you citizenship in 90 days, and my office would help you do it.
Sergio?
As I was going over the fine speeches that I'm hearing, it reminds me that I was a young kid once in Puerto Rico. My mother brought me to this country. I didn't ask her to bring me. I was 13. The same way we have to have compassion for those kids who their parents are the ones who brought them. Remember, they were brought over here without their knowledge or understanding. So what are we going to do with those kids? If they become a social viable source to this society, they went to school, they got jobs, they took care of themselves, then we can have ways of bringing them over to become full-fledged citizens. People from Venezuela, they get here and their one thing is, want to be a citizen. But the ones who are here, the DACA kids, they haven't done anything for years. All they have is a Democratic Party that is always kicking the can. It is time for them to stand up. I respect all those kids who says, I'm in the system, I already filled out my paperwork, it's been taking me 5-10 years to get it done, but I am fighting to do what's right. As long as you keep hiding from the system, then you're doing it wrong. So we need to have systems that we have already in place to help them out, to get them out of the bondage and open their eyes to see that the process is there for them to become full-fledged citizens. They just have to do the form.
I don't disagree with what these other gentlemen have been saying. With most things, we have a very similar view when it comes to this. I would like to say this about immigration. With President Trump did something very, very good whenever I think it's the H-1B visas, in which he put a stop to that for the next 6 months, so that we had people coming in from different countries, could be China or India or anywhere, okay, which are jobs that are in Silicon Valley, okay, and we've got kids that are coming out of college and they can't find a job, but we're importing people to undercut them and take their jobs. And President Trump said, no more of that, okay? So that's a good thing. Thank you.
Now, I think I could speak for everyone in this room that what happened to George Floyd was reprehensible. That's not a debatable question. But please discuss what you see as happening with the Black Lives Matter Incorporated organization and where they're headed, and how do we as a Republican Party, and you as a Republican candidate, deal with that?
As long as we're not asking loaded questions, right? Obviously, starting out, what happened with George Floyd and any instance of police abuse or brutality is absolutely to be condemned by everybody on this stage and any other conservative stage out there. All right? The trick, though, is, the key here is, you don't let a single instance of police brutality define the entire program. And that's what's been happening right now. You take one instance, or even a half a dozen instances throughout the entire country, but then you try to create the narrative that the whole thing is corrupt, that every interaction that law enforcement has with a minority community is somehow aimed at either getting them in jail, or oppressing them, or murdering them, and it's just not true. It's not true, and anybody who really goes out and looks at the numbers can see that. Now, obviously, we're not going to stand up here and tell you that police brutality is an okay thing. It's not. It's not. But let's keep it in context. Let's keep it in focus. Let's identify the people that we see doing things that are inappropriate and allow the criminal justice system to do its job. You get them off the force, you get them prosecuted, and you either put them in jail or you send them out the door. There's also another aspect to this, which is the immunity to keep officers from being sued. And I actually, at the last debate, suggested a hybrid of the idea that's going on right now. The left just wants to waive that immunity, which is, by the way, is judge-made. They just want to waive the immunity and let the floodgates open and people sue our law enforcement officers. Well, who's going to want to be a law enforcement officer if every time you walk out the door you're risking everything you've ever worked for? But I think we can take a hybrid. I think we can take back or reinstitute citizen review boards that allow for an independent examination of all the facts surrounding an instance, and then that board could have the opportunity to waive immunity and allow a case to proceed in court. I think that's a reasonable way to address that situation. But as a party, we just need to keep people focused on the fact that our law enforcement officers are good people. They're good people who risk their lives every single day. And you especially see that in these neighborhoods where they're calling for cops and they're not coming because they're calling out. It just reinforces the need to keep that industry, that profession strong.
Sure.
The argument that I have with Black Lives Matter is that it's a fallacy in itself. It has been a lie since the beginning, and it will always be a lie, because the concept of Black Lives Matter, they don't agree with that. Yes, they took one incident and made it into a crisis. But what happens to those? Out of 800,000 abortions, over 300,000 were black kids. Did those lives matter? Are there any better than the other lives that are alive today? So the concept of Black Lives Matter, I don't follow along with them. I don't see why they are having such an uproar on one incident, with 97% of the death that happens to black men are from black people. Okay? Nobody's talking about the 7-year-old girl in Chicago who got killed in the streets. Nobody's talking about the 11-year-old in Atlanta that got killed in the streets, because that is not what they want you to portray. They just want to keep talking about something and keep making money out of it, because it is a money business. The more they put it out there, the more that they push it, more money they get, and they get their coffers built up. So it's a fallacy, like I said, because it is a lie, it's an enigma. They're not really about Black Lives Matter, because they will really, really struggle, and they will work to have all lives matter, because all lives are precious unto God.
Bill?
So I addressed this a little bit during my opening statement, and what we talked about Black Lives Matter nationally. But let's talk a little bit about what's happened in our district. Since 2013, I believe I looked it up, I believe there were 5 people that were shot and killed in Osceola, Polk, and Orange County. 5 people in 7 years. 3 were white, 2 were Hispanic, one Well, he was using a bar stool to swing it at the officer, and apparently it happened. So this is not a problem that we have here in the district, at least statistically. Do Black Lives Matter? Of course they do. Of course they do. But that's not what Black Lives Matter, the institution, the organization, that is not what they're about. You saw with you probably seen it, Don Lemon and Terry Crews, the actor, talking about this, and Terry Crews was saying, hey, listen, Black Lives Matter, but apparently they don't matter up in Chicago when there are dozens of people shot and killed each weekend on black crime. But they don't want to talk about that. They just want the instances, which last year, by the way, countrywide, 10 instances where there were a black person shot and killed where they didn't necessarily have a weapon. This is not an epidemic. It's unfortunate when it happens. If it is a situation where there's a mistake, the officer needs to make sure that it gets corrected, and if it's malice, he needs to go to jail. But let's not overreact.
What happened to George Floyd was definitely a tragedy. I can't. If he was my family, I couldn't imagine the pain. But I gotta tell you this: the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't think that even Martin Luther King, if he was alive, he would support it. So I don't support it. What are they calling for? They're calling for social justice, economic justice. Yet they want blacks and everyone to vote for the Democrats and Darren Soto. And these people are actually hurting their communities. I keep saying it, I know, border security. But what minority group is the one impacted the most by having a border open? It's the blacks in America. Because all these Mexican cartels are flooding our inner cities, poorest neighborhoods in America, with drugs. And then guess what? They need jobs, right, to get their family out of poverty and make sure that their children are better off. But we have illegals coming here keeping wages low. So I do not support Black Lives Matter. I know they also want to defund the police, and I'll tell you right now, I have family and I have friends who serve, put that uniform on. And I've said it before, when I go to work, when I came to this debate, I kiss my daughter. I love her. If anything happens to me or to her, so every time I take an opportunity, I kiss her. I cannot imagine what my friends and family and every officer who wears the uniform feels when they have to put on that badge and go out the door. So I support the police. I do not support Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
We're all concerned about the composition of the Supreme Court of the land, right? And there's a possibility that Thomas and Alito will be retiring. And the Dems have made a suggestion of expanding the membership of the Supreme Court beyond 9. What's your opinion?
Of course they want to increase the numbers. They want to increase possibilities of having more liberal judges in the Supreme Court. 9 is a fair number. It's been there for a minute. Yes, there were times that we had more, but 9 is a good number to have. It's nice and odd where you have a majority, which is what they want to do, and this is our purpose too. Let's not forget that Ginsburg's not a spring chicken, and somebody is going to have to be there as president to put her whoever comes after her. We need to have those judges who have sound constitutional wisdom, and the list is already out there. That's what they're saying because they know there's a list of people that they're going to have a hard time refuting.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah, that's really what we need. 2 more lawyers to go up to Washington, D.C. and tell us what to do. Yeah, I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, so we're not going to be expanding the court, but what we need to make sure is this. We need to re-elect Donald Trump so that when those justices retire, we're going to fill them up with conservative justices. But this is the thing. Look at our district, okay? You have the statistics right in front of you. You need a candidate not only that can win this election so they can go and represent us, we need a candidate that is not going to ride the coattails of Donald Trump, but it's going to help him win in November. Okay, I'm the only candidate. And I've said it before, I want to hear from my opponents. Why do they think they can win this race? Have you heard this tonight? I don't think so. So I hope that we can get that question soon. Thank you.
Chris?
So there's a couple schools of thought on the Supreme Court. If you expand the number of justices, you dilute the vote, which in theory could make it easier for you to garner a majority of justices for whatever it is that you're arguing. Keeping the courts smaller puts more power in the justices, consolidates things so that when we have a turnover, you could see drastic changes in national policy just by one seat flipping. So there are arguments on both sides of that issue, but I haven't heard one that is so compelling that I thought that we needed to expand the Supreme Court. I think if it's not broke, don't fix it. Right? And as far as I can tell, it's working, maybe not as great as we want it to, but that problem can be solved just by making sure that we have President Trump for another 4 years and putting good justices on it. And discouraging them from retiring, by the way. You know, Alito needs to go until that guy drops dead. You know, because he's been the one that's been holding down the fort next to Thomas. Thomas, after Scalia died, has been our right-wing justice. And Alito's been right there with him on almost all those cases. So those two guys, listen, I understand they might be looking forward to retirement, but they got to stay on the court until they drop dead.
President George H.W. Bush, back a few years ago, saw in the Justice Department indicted Manuel Noriega, and we went in and took him out of Panama. Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela has gone down a similar path. Would each of you, since we have such a large Hispanic community in Osceola and Orange County and in Polk County, people are watching what's happening in Venezuela. Would you each comment on it and your suggestions of what you would do in Congress if you were there?
So it's a very delicate issue, you know, especially in Venezuela, what's happening. They have a dictator. They voted for socialism, and then they realized it's not working for them. So now they're coming here to America. And this is what I got to tell people. Listen, I support the people of Venezuela. I have a lot of friends of mine who are in Venezuela. They're good people. They love their country. And we got to help them get their country back. And I got to tell you, Maduro, I bet you every day he turns on CNN hoping that we give them TPS. But guess what? If we do that, they will never get that country back. We will lose Venezuela forever. Can you imagine if our founding fathers, if someone would have said, hey guys, don't fight the British, just come this way. We'll help you over here. We'll give you safe haven. And they would have never stand up and fought for their freedoms and for their rights. So when I talk to people and I talked about border security and stopping illegal immigration, like I tell them, listen, I know that people are running away from corrupt dictators, from corrupt leaders and governors, and we need to help them fight. And that's why I intend to go to do to Congress. I'm gonna, you know, if we need to legislate, I will do that, but I'll be a voice. I'll be a voice for the people, even though I'm gonna be representing my district. I'll speak loudly against socialism. We said it before, the people, I don't know anyone who says, I know one person, but they were a baby when they left. I only know one person that has left socialism and actually supports the Democratic Party. So, thank you.
Chris?
I think we need to take the same approach that we've taken with Iran. I think we need to continue to crush them with sanctions, make it so they can't get their goods out, they can't get their funds out, they're having a hard time finding trading partners. At the same time, I think we need to be supporting the people of Venezuela with humanitarian aid and civic programs with infrastructure where we can get it. But we cannot go in with force and remove a leader. We've got to let the people of Venezuela make that move on their own, because if we go in and do it ourselves, we risk alienating our international partners. And we have too much riding with our international partners to face those kinds of sanctions, right? Because don't forget, we're in a partnership agreement, we're in a treaty with those other countries just like everybody else is, and they could just as easily sanction us for violating our own treaty too, right? So we've got to make sure, especially since we're supposed to be the world leader, we have to play by the rules. We've negotiated the treaty, we got to stick to it, but that doesn't mean that we don't have tools to try to influence regime change in Venezuela, and it also doesn't mean that we can't help the people.
We have Russians in Venezuela right now. We have Chinese. And we have people from all those terrorist countries that want to kill us. We need to get rid of it. We need to change. We need to do what we need to do to protect the United States of America. If it entails arming Guaidó to go over there as an army and take over, not like we did in Bay of Pigs, okay? Not what we did in Panama. We need to make sure that if we are going to support those people who are opposing that dictatorial system, that we do it right. That if we're going to go after them, that we do it with all our hearts and all our minds, because we don't want another communistic nation in this hemisphere. This is our hemisphere. This is our country. This is our world. We need to defend it to the utmost. And the people of Venezuela are crying out for us like a deer in the desert. They're crying for us to help them. So we need to do whatever it takes to change that system, to bring peace and love and understanding to that nation. And I will do everything that I can to help out those people from Venezuela, because I know a lot of them that are coming here and they're not doing it because they feel like having a vacation. They're coming here because they are being killed and destroyed. So we need to protect them.
Bill.
Venezuela needs to solve their own problem. The people of Venezuela have to take responsibility for themselves in order to get rid of Maduro. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't help. Help by weakening the Maduro government with sanctions and things like that. But we cannot, listen, I was in the uniform for many years, and every time a president wanted to go off in an area, sometimes it was right, but other times it was not. And I know what it feels like to be able to pack up your stuff and head off to a foreign country, leave your family, and years later find out that perhaps it wasn't the right thing to do. So we need to help the people of Venezuela how we can with humanitarian stuff, but we can't go into Venezuela and take over. We just can't do that.
This is going to be the closing statements. We're going to give you each 3 minutes, okay, to sum up where you stand, what you're going to do, so on and so forth. And we'll start with Chris.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate you being here. JC and George for moderating the event for us. As I said when we started, I hoped that as you watched the debate tonight, some things were starting to stand out to you, and I think it's pretty apparent that ideologically, there's not a whole lot of difference between myself and the other guys on the stage. But there is a huge difference with how well we understand the system, how well we understand the law. Remember that the person we're sending to DC is going to have to stand in a room full of lawyers and convince people that they're right and make policy changes based on law. Now, that's not to say that you have to be a lawyer to go to DC to be an effective congressman. But they'll spend the entirety of their first term just trying to figure out how the process works, whereas I'll be able to hit the ground running. Day one, I'll be able to jump in and start being an effective advocate for the people here in our district. And it's also about being able to craft a message that will speak to our moderate and our independent base, because those are going to be the folks that carry us through the general, right? So we have to be able to take a message, craft it, and articulate it in a meaningful way so that people can take your vision, make it their own, and then help you push that vision up to Washington, D.C. so that you can make real change. I've spent my professional career developing the skills to be able to do that. And I think that stood out tonight as I've been discussing the different issues up here. It's the fundamental basics of leadership. Being able to get your vision into the hands of the people so that they can accept it, make it theirs, and carry it forward. It's leadership that we haven't seen in our district for the last 4 years. Remember, Darren Soto likes to keep his head down in Congress. Darren Soto likes to just listen to Nancy Pelosi, and she tells him how to vote. I know they just passed the proxy thing a few weeks ago, but Darren's been giving Nancy his proxy since he got into office. All right? So, but that's what I'm talking about. You have to create your own message. You can't just go up there and say, hey, Nancy, how should I vote? That's not leadership. And that's what we need in this district. We need leadership. And I think that's what sets us apart, or sets me apart from the other guys on the stand. And that's why I'm the person that can craft the message, get us through the primary, carry us through the general, and to Washington, D.C. And because of that, I need your vote. I need your support. But more importantly, I need you on my team. I need your help to get the message out. I want you to participate with me, to talk to people, to help me develop the vision so that it can be a shared vision, not just mine. Yes. Thank you. I hope I get your vote.
Sergio, 3 minutes.
My message is simple. I don't like complexities in life. If you keep it simple, we always use the KISS method. Keep it simple and it will be effective. If we start going over there and implementing more laws, getting more laws passed, more statutes, and we don't support the ones that we already have. We have too many laws in the book. We need to break down those laws. We need to bring down all those regulations. Obama put over 45,000 regulations that is hindering your businesses, that is hindering your future. My granddaughter's back there. She's 8 years old. I'm gonna fight that this country will not go socialist. I will fight because I have an endeavor that I know that my 9 grandkids who were born in this district, who will have a future in this district, that they will have a place to live in peace, that this United States of America will be the best and the best country in the world. I'm not an eloquent speaker, but I come from the heart. I work hard. I have worked hard all my life. Since the moment that I started helping the elderly in Chicago, since the moment I came here over almost 30 years ago, I've done everything that I need to do to get ahead. I'm not going to stop working for you because you matter. You are the reason why we're here. You are the wings beneath my wings. It might be a song, it's a beautiful song, but that's who you are. Because no matter what, when I go to Washington, I have you in my heart. You're the ones who will be guiding and leading me to do better and better. And I will fight for your freedom, for the prosperity of this county, for the prosperity of your children, because faith, family, and freedom is my motto. And that's what I stand for. Your family, our faith, and freedom. Thank you.
Bill?
Folks, we have a diverse field up here. It's just amazing to me that we listen to the ruling class and we continue to send up to Washington, D.C. the same cookie-cutter people, the ones that can spin a yarn and talk and talk and talk and not do anything. Now, folks, we've got a lawyer here, we have a banker here, we have a soldier, we have a business person, a manager at Walt Disney World. All of them patriots. But think about who is like you. Who has the same values as you? Who has lived their life just like you? Do you want someone to go up to Washington, D.C. that represents you as a person, or just the guy that talks the most eloquent and thinks that he can hit the ground running? How about we stop the ground running? We've got enough laws up in Washington, D.C. They make hundreds of them every 2 years. Do we need more? We've got more than anyone could ever understand. So we don't need to make more changes. We need to stop, press the brake for a little while, get President Trump reelected, keep him in office, flip that seat, flip our seat, and 18 more, 17 more, in order for Nancy Pelosi to head out. Because, listen, Darren Soto, 93% of the time, he's voting with her. We have to flip it. Send someone that's like you to Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Jose.
I want to tell you why I decided to run. I filed my papers over a year ago, not a few months ago, over a year ago. And I did so because everywhere I went in our district, whether it was a restaurant, a supermarket, I saw people that were tired. And I asked them, why are you tired? And people would tell me, I'm working multiple jobs. I'm working long hours just to make ends meet. And I thought, this is crazy. We have the best economy in the world right now. Why is it that our people are struggling? And it was clear to me that illegal immigration had a big impact. So I said, I want to go to Congress and help President Trump help that. And this is why, listen, when you're working long hours, multiple jobs, you're not at home. You're not at home for your kids. You're not making healthy home-cooked meals for you or for them. You're not helping them with their schooling. So we could pour as much money as we want to our schools. It's not going to work if the parents are not involved. So we need someone, not someone who understands law. We need someone who understands the struggle that the citizens in their district are facing, so they can go to Washington and take action. And that's me. And not only that, I've said it before, I'm the only candidate that can actually overcome the facts, the statistics. We're outnumbered here. 227,000 Democrats to 155,000 Republicans. How are we going to win? We've been here before. We need a candidate who can actually win in November, and I'm the only candidate. So I hope that come August, well, actually come November too, you'll vote for me. Because trust me, when I go to Congress, I'll be voting for you. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. First of all, give a big hand to George Jackow and J.C. Martin.